Hey fam, let's talk about my year in South Korea. Yes, I spent a whole year living and teaching in South Korea, and you're probably thinking of North Korea, and you are probably worried about me and so concerned, and it was okay. This was back in 2018. North Korea and South Korea, different countries. Most people can't even enter into North Korea, and when you're in South Korea, you feel like you're in a whole different world. But it was my year of firsts. Like, I had so many firsts there. It was my first time living in another country, outside of the States. It was my first time working in another country, being an alien. I had an alien registration card. It was my first time teaching English as a foreign language, my first time in South Korea, in East Asia, and my first time ever feeling safe as a Black woman. Yeah, feeling safe and just feeling free, like my whole person just felt free. And South Korea was the country that gave that to me, so I'm grateful for that. I am Eb from Eb's Migrations. If you are new to my channel, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so happy you're here. And if you are returning, thank you for coming back.
Hello beautiful people, welcome to my channel. It's me, Eb from Eb's Migrations. Several years ago, I decided to leave the US and embark on a journey of living abroad. That journey has led me to some beautiful places around the world. I share my journey to inspire you to take that leap of faith, follow your passion, and live your best life. There's no better time than the present, so what are you waiting for? Let's go.
So, you probably want to know what made me choose South Korea, right? Out of all the places in the world to live, why did I choose South Korea? I would like to say South Korea chose me. The Most High had me meet someone. I was in Bali on my first solo trip, and I met someone from South Africa, from Johannesburg, and she was teaching in South Korea, and she was just telling me about her experiences, and she actually mentioned feeling free as a Black woman, like her first time experiencing that as well. And something about that just piqued my interest. And I don't believe in coincidences. So when I returned to the States, I just wasn't happy at work. I wasn't happy at work prior to Bali. I did a whole separate video on why I left America. But I wound up following through. Like, I reached out to her just to see what program and how she was able to go teach in South Korea, and she went through the E.P.I.K program, English program in Korea, and that is the same program that I went through. This again was 2018, I don't know what's popped up since then, but it was one of the biggest companies to teach in South Korea. And I researched Vietnam and Japan and different countries in Asia, but South Korea just offered the most comprehensive package. E.P.I.K specifically pays for your flight there and back. You get a certain amount of reimbursement, which is great because my flight was less than the money that they gave. You get a flight there, you get a flight back, you get a severance when it's time to leave, you get a pension. The longer you stay, the more your pension grows. You know how pensions work. You also, what else? They pay for your accommodations. They'll put you in a studio, an efficiency, or depending if you're coming with a child, that all depends on one bedroom. It depends also on the town that you are selected to live in. You can make a choice, but mine was selected at random. I knew nothing really about South Korea, so I was open to anywhere they wanted to put me. And all I had to worry about was my utilities and feeding myself for a whole year. So it was a great way to save. Yes, it was a pay cut, a huge pay cut. And that's how desperate I was to leave the States, that I was so willing to take a pay cut and experience something new in the world. But I had less expenses, you know, and it just was a eye-opening opportunity, and it taught me a lot. And since then, I have not returned to live fully in the States. It's been since 2018, so yeah, whatever South Korea did, it worked its charm and its magic on me, and I have been a nomad since. But the whole process for E.P.I.K is intense. Like, if you are considering it, make sure you look at when the application deadlines are and start immediately. You will need to be TEFL certified, and you need your bachelor's degree. It's a great opportunity coming fresh out of college to pay down student loans. Like, there are tons of videos out there about the E.P.I.K program. Like, my video is not necessarily to help you get into the E.P.I.K program or about the application process. There are tons of videos. Just look up E.P.I.K on YouTube and you can find tons of videos. That's what I did prior to going, about the entire process. One thing I will share with you that helped me, only because the interviewer told me this, was that my lesson plan stood out. He said he sees a lot of lesson plans and has not seen one like mine. Mind you, that was my first lesson plan ever. And it took me so long to figure it out. One thing that I did find from a lot of the videos was that do a lesson plan and what your passion is, right? So if your passion is drama, music, whatever that is, teach a lesson on that. It's something that is your passion and you know the most about, so it should be easy. I taught 22 classes a week. 22 classes. And most of that, maybe like 15 of that was the same lesson throughout the entire week. So it challenged me to like get real creative with my lessons and make them very engaging, because I need that. I'm the type, like, if I'm not engaged and I don't like it, I know my students aren't going to be here for it, because if I'm not feeling it, I can't help somebody else to feel it. Not just my students love me. They made it so amazing as my first time teacher. I do remember the first class, I had like a game prepared and I had like this little intro that I would give the class that I will share, but I remember starting a lesson, my first lesson outside of the game, like it was game on now, right? Like introductions are done, orientation is over, like you gotta start teaching. And I've never taught before, like I'm a social worker. I've been a social worker from like 2008 all the way up until I left to go to South Korea. So that's just me, and that helps so much. Empath and being understanding and resourceful and being able to manage behaviors, right, is what helped me in the classroom tremendously. But first class teaching, and then my students are like, slow down, you're too fast. And like inside I died. I was like, oh my God, I felt like I'm not gonna be able to do this. They don't understand me. I'm speaking too fast, straight from New Jersey. After I realized I was talking too fast and how to slow down and like simplify things went well. Like in the class, right? So class would start with a student leader getting all the students' attention, right? So I come in, there's a podium in my school. Now all schools have like this smart technology setup, but I never had like a chalkboard. It would be a whiteboard that we use like a PowerPoint. So I taught all my lessons with PowerPoint. And the student leader stands up, says whatever the command is, gets all the students quiet, and once they are, then they'll bow to you. And it's kind of just expressing gratitude, like saying that they love you and thank you for teaching me. And that's how class starts and that's how class ends. Great, right? Like if you want to be respected as a teacher, this is the country for you, because after government officials, teachers are there, and there's just a lot of respect placed on education and teachers. And I will share 2 strategies that I use in class for like classroom management, because my classes were loaded. Maybe I had like 25 students in the class. Oh, so the classroom management techniques. The first one for like if the class gets too loud, and I learned this during orientation, somebody mentioned it, and I was like, I like that, I'm gonna use it. So you just solicit like, what is the sound of a waterfall? Like what sound does a waterfall make? And I'll give you a second to think about that, and you should say shh. Right? So I say when Ebony teacher, because that's how they refer to you, your first name and then teacher, or they'll call you Sangsonim, like that's what teacher is in Korean. I say when Ebony teacher says waterfall, you say shh. And I'm like, I'm only using this if the class gets too loud or I have something important to say and I need your attention, right? And then if I have to do waterfall 3 times, we go straight to the book, because my classes were fun. That's what made my classes stand out and why my students liked it, because I played games. If I did 3 times, and I would do lines on the board, because what I've learned as a social worker is follow through is important. Do not make idle threats, right? If you're saying that if it gets too loud and you have to keep repeating yourself, you're gonna go to the book or whatever it is that you're saying you're gonna do, you must be willing to do it regardless of the outcome, right? That means you can have attitudes or even more disruption, but you need to be willing to follow through, right? So only use this strategy if you are up for the challenge. Is what gets to 2, and trust me, their classmates will hold them accountable. I had so much respect from my students that like, I didn't really have to do much in class. They would do it, and my co-teachers had too much faith in me, because they would leave me by myself. They were overworked as well. Like this is in addition to their other classes that they are in the class with you, and it's up to you to determine the working style you'll have, the teaching style you'll have with each individual co-teacher. One was I created a point system. I noticed that like engagement was low in my classes at the beginning. Like nobody was interested, and then I don't know if I was using games too much, but I was like, all right, I need something to where these students are like raising their hands if I'm asking questions. I need them to engage. So I was like, oh, let me do an incentive. So I created a point system, and I gave each kid a point card. And the point card, mind you, I was teaching middle school. I don't know if I mentioned that. I taught middle school at both schools. The point card system, mine was very DIY. I just had index cards, and I gave each student an index cards for all my classes. Yes, 22 classes, about 25 students in the class. My hands were busy, but it was important because I needed something. And how the point cards worked for me, my system, I created this system, was you needed 25 points. You get 25 points, you can redeem and get a prize. The prizes would be ramen or any of the treats that they like. Like I learned what my students like, and I would have that. So once you give me your point card, the next class I saw you at, I bring you your prize. How do you get points, right? You get 1 point every class. Just raise your hand. Anytime you raise your hand and I called on you, you received a point. If your answer was correct, you received an additional point. So just from raising your hand and answering a question correctly, 2 points. And I don't care how many times you do it in a class. I'm giving everybody an opportunity, but just to raise your hand gets 1 point. So I did raising your hand as 1 point just so I can get more hands up for questions, and it worked. It really worked, especially once one student would see like what the gift was, like when one student received it in class, and I made it a big thing, okay? Make things a big deal. So you also your team can earn points for winning the game that day. So there was just I made a lot of opportunities in each class for students to earn points. Yeah, that's what worked for me. Waterfall, and point cards. And so I would see the girls like dancing to some of like the K-pop songs, and it reminded me of me and my friends dancing to like R&B and pop, because that's what K-pop to me is. It's just old school, like New Edition and these other groups that used to exist back in the day. They didn't reinvent the wheel. Same thing being recycled. So I ran like a club, because you have so many responsibilities if you do this through E.P.I.K. Outside of just your teaching 22 classes, you do have to run after-school clubs. You have to create a curriculum for a winter program and a summer program. Like you're gonna be working, but there's a lot of what they call desk warming time, where you are sitting at your desk. We're doing pen pals with one of my after-school clubs, and it was my friend was from the States and he suggested it, but his students were younger than my students, but it was okay just because of the English writing was kind of on par. My students were a bit more advanced. Of course, they were middle school students, and his were elementary, but it was still a perfect opportunity to see the cultural differences. And my students was introducing his students to like BTS back then, and the States didn't even know anything really about K-pop unless you were like into that type of stuff, but it wasn't as mainstream as it is now. So once it became mainstream, his students were like, that's what we learned from the pen pals. And I'm like, yeah. So some of it was like heartbreaking to read the letters of like the experiences that his students would write about versus like what my students would write about, and just how I mentioned before, like that freedom as a Black woman. And it's not just a Black woman, it's just the freedom from America. And reading those pen pals just showed me like what life is like for a lot of Americans of color, and seeing what my students were like, they just lived a different life. It was a lot of freedom, and they didn't have to worry about those things, but it was a great opportunity, for that exchange. And then my winter club, I was so proud of this and so happy. My winter club, I taught my students, it's gonna sound ambitious, I know, but it went well, actually. They were smart cookies. We did like marketing and branding. So I taught them how to do DIY. We did like skincare products, and then I taught them how to do like product research and branding and pitching the brand and coming up with like a tagline and a slogan and just developing your product. And they did so well. Like they did their presentations. It was really nice to see what they came up with. And then like I had an award for the winner because I had a rubric to make sure that they adhered to like everything that they were supposed to do. And I taught them about essential oils, and they got to build their own scents to add into their like products. So they really loved it. They were so sad that I wasn't coming back for the following school year. Some of them only found out like in club that was it, because this was summer club. But all in all, teaching English wasn't fun for me. My students were fun and made it fun, but like, I just wasn't into it. But I would have lived in Korea. Like I would live in South Korea if the weather was sunny all around.